Welcome to part 2 of this series of videos where I am modelling a Roman gladius short sword in Blender. In today's video I'm going to be adding the smaller details to the sword that we made last time, and I'm also going to be unwrapping the model, preparing it for texturing and adding materials. I have also fixed the prompt icon that was not appearing in the last video. That is now back in the bottom left hand corner. So I'm going to be working from the pin to the blade. So first thing I'm going to do is click the pin, and I'm immediately going to go Control A and apply all transforms to make sure that the scale location has been set back to 0 and the scale has been set to 1. This is because this was scaled and moved while in object mode, which changed the correct size of the actual mesh. This will help when it comes to beveling, as it will not be affected by any of these factors. So I'm just going to go into wireframe, and I can see here that I've got like a couple of indents, and it kind of chamfers its way over this edge here. So I'm going to go into edit mode, Control R, and I'm going to start adding these cut points so I know where they're going to go. So it goes there, then it comes in a little, there, then out, and then in, and then out again, like so. So now that I've made my cuts, I can start scaling it in and out accordingly. If you want to scale something, don't get too close with the mouse because you don't have as much travel distance. You have more control if you move your mouse away from the point of origin, just like that. So that comes in, I'll select that. Scale out a little bit. Next one comes in. Like so. So I look at these pins online, and I found that they aren't actually flat. I thought they were going to be flat on the top, as this reference image here makes it kind of appear like it's flat on the top, but it's not. What it is actually completely rounded. So I'm going to grab that face there, Control I, move it as close as possible, and then I'm going to delete that face, grab the inside edge, oops, might have to get a little bit closer. There we go. And I'm going to press M at center, and that's just going to merge it in the middle. Now back to the side view of this model. I'm going to start adding in a couple of bevels, chamfers on these edges because they're not actually smooth. So that one's beveled there. This one's beveled a little bit here, like that. And this one here has also got a pronounced bevel. Although it might go all the way down to the actual, it goes all the way to here. So what I'm going to have to do for that is merge this all now. Select A, merge by distance, increase the distance slightly. Oh, that's too much. Too much. Even more. So nothing's been removed there. So I'm going to do this in vertex mode, and I'm going to increase that ever so slightly. Maybe that's 1 instead. So that does 100 vertices. but I can see here that that's still too much, as it has affected this. So instead I'm only going to select the affected area. Oops, Control Z that back. I'm only going to do this on the affected area, which is here. So let's try that again with M by distance. There we go, that's better. Right, so that one is complete there. Let's have a look at that. Let's just remove the wireframe. Have a look. Yep. It's definitely very similar to the pin on that one. Not much I can do to the pommel. Pommel is quite generic in shape, so I'm going to move straight on to the handle here. Sorry. So what I'm going to do with the handle is we can see it kind of comes in towards the base here, and it'll also come in just here. So it's extruded up and then it's going to be rounded on this edge. So what I'm going to do now is just select the handle, go to edit mode, and I'm going to start bringing that in. I'm going to put a cut, whoops, put a cut here. So I'll start bringing that edge there in a little bit, like so, just rounding that off. Extrude and scale, like so. This will all be lined up a little bit better in future. So move that in like that, and that should now cause a better edge. Have a look at that. Out the wireframe. Oh, excuse me, I didn't move. Okay. Yeah, that's seeing reasonably. I see this handle has to come down a little bit to fit the pommel a little bit better. So back in the wireframe. This one has a little bit more of a gap. So what I'm going to do here is select that edge, extrude by scale, put that in a tiny little bit, and I'm also going to select this object here, Control A, set my transforms back before I do the bevel. That edge, Control B, there we go. See it just a little bit nicer. You can also see there's a little bit of rounding on both this edge, just a small amount there, and on the corresponding edge here, like so. So if I look at that handle, there we go, that's sitting much better, and you can see that it's matching up against the reference image just a little bit nicer. Yeah, it's definitely got a bit more of a solid edge there. There we go. So next we're moving on to the handguard. So the handguard is a more interesting piece. It's a little bit more complicated, as this edge here is a little bit less obvious, but there is definitely a bevel on that edge between that wood and that metal. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to apply transform, go into edit mode, I'm going to put a cut right down the center, scale uniformly towards the middle. Oh, that is definitely scaled too far. Just a little bit in. There we go. And then I'm going to take this edge here, this edge here, and I'm going to see what happens if I bevel both. And that might be a little bit too much. Let's start with just beveling one, shall I? That's better. That suits it a little bit more like it. Let's select that edge, GY. A little bit closer. I am going to give it a tiny bevel. Just on the end there. I think is I might have given that one just a little bit too much bevel now. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to GY. Move it a little bit closer, Control B. Very slightly smaller bevel. And GY. A little bit closer. Give that one a very slight bevel as well. Have a look what that looks like in solid mode. It's close. I don't think it's quite close enough. It's working out now what is causing it to be not right. Go back into edit mode again. A lot of the process is just working out what you need to change. So I'm going to move some of this bevel up a little bit to give it a little bit more roundness. Maybe I haven't set that too much. Let's bring it back just a little bit. This might be it. Just playing around with having a look and see what looks best. Oops. There we go. GY. GY. Solid mode again. It's a bit closer. Around that edge, we'll have a see what that looks like. This one here, again, has quite a short bevel on it. Let's have a look at that. There we go. Looks much better. Poly counting at 3,000. It's not too bad for a blade like this. I am going to be adding a few more polys later on. I might also add a turbo smooth or a subdivision surface, sorry. That one, see what that looks like. Not too bad. This is of course because I haven't capped the end properly. Can fix that now. Picking on the end. Delete. my face. Selecting all the faces around. Find the central point. Deselect that one. Deselect its opposite number. Oof. Whichever one that would be. Oops, no, that was right. There. That was 3. So shift. Ah. He's going to immediately take me into the picture. I can just go into front view. There we go, it's this one here. Whether it'll let me deselect it, it doesn't matter. There we go. Right, there we go. Now, bridge. Oh, and it's not read that right. Why has that decided not to do that? Let's have a look. Let's take the take that one out of the equation. Take this one out of the equation. Now it should do opposites. Bridge. Well, I had it go, but again it has decided to mess that up for some reason. Okay. Let's go this one. This one. Bevel. Oops. And let's go. Oh, it's so hard to see. Straight down this one and this one. Bridge. I've been saying bevel. It's not bevel at all, it's bridge. And then deselect that one. Deselect that one. Bridge. Hooray! Right, that's much better. What I am going to do though is Control R, straight down the middle, and that way I can move this one. Oops, not this one. Not this one at all. I've done this in the wrong order. There we go. This one and this one, bridge. Now Control R. Then I can move this one up. A lot of it's just a game of playing around, seeing what works. There we go. Now from A, select all those, M by distance. Should remove 2 vertices. Yep, it removes 2 vertices. And now, add that turbo, the subdivision surface. There we go. It's gotten rid of that horrible inner line that was happening. That was just caused because it was triangulating the mesh that was just a giant n-gon here. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me so far. This will have to be seated just a little bit better in future. But other than that, not looking too bad so far. Finally, we're going to work on the blade here. Now, there's a couple of things about the blade. One, I want to reduce this cross here. It's quite obvious where those polys are meeting. I can do that with a subdivision surface, but then this happens. So I don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is just remove that down to 0 for now, and go into set all transforms, go into edit mode. First thing I want to do is add a line down the middle, because that is quite obvious. So what I'm going to do here is go to edge, select that middle line. I'm going to control B to cause a bevel. There we go. By adding these extra lines, it's going to make the whole blade here, anything that's the fuller, the full fuller here is going to be more pronounced as it's got more geometry either side. Next I'm going to add a small bevel to this here, and that's going to separate the cutting edge from the main part of the blade. Control B, it's just going to be a very slight bevel there, and one on the actual middle of the edge, very small there. Now if we add that subdivision surface back, we can see now it's kept the edge, it's kept the fuller, but it's gotten rid of this here. But we do need to add it just a little bit back in. As you can see, it's not quite as pointed. So what we can do, get rid of that second, is add a bevel here. It's a little bit more pronounced there, and that should now, yeah, it's made it disappear a little bit. It is still there. Let's have a look what happens when we go to face surface smooth. Does that increase the, got rid of it a little bit more? Yeah, it's got rid of it a little bit. It is still there, it is still a little bit visible. Might be able to reduce it a little bit more by moving those down. However, that point is quite correct in its look. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. So the next thing we've got to do is start unwrapping this. Well, I am going to have a look at it in rendered mode first, like that, just to see if there's any problems. Other than this down here where they're not quite meeting up correctly, that's going to be fixed with a little bit more scaling. So onto scaling I go. So this needs to fit a little bit better. First I'm going to just move it down a little bit. It's fitting a little bit more central. Like that. These should all have a central point. Like in the wireframe. Yeah, there we go. Easy. But now that's going through there a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just move the pommel back ever so slightly. Like that. Still coming through a tiny bit there. Actually, why? There we go. A little bit better. Now down this end, this definitely hasn't lined up correctly, so I'm going to move that one down there, and then the blade as well dowel needs to come down, although it's a bit more difficult to see. There we go. Everything's in line all the way through the centre, with the exception of you. Let's have a look. GZ. There you go. Oops. GZ. There you go. Now everything's central, but I still have the problem of it's not quite wide enough to fit. So what I'm going to do is scale it on the x-axis. That might not completely fix the problem. We'll make it a little bit easier. Let's have a look at the reference. Control Alt-H, sorry. Yeah, that's all fitting correctly, so it's just a case of scaling it. Oops, scaling on the x-axis a little bit. There you go. That's making it fit just a little bit better. It's very hard to see that inside now. In fact, it might be able to go just a little bit wider. Cover that up. There we go. Look more like a gladius. And it is seating a little bit better. There is a bit of a gap there, but only at this angle can you see inside of there. In fact, what I might do is just grab that inside edge, scale that in so that you can't actually see it. No, I think that needs to be scaled just a tiny bit more. Go to a top view, scale on the x-axis. And now, that cup is matching that one there. So what I might be able to do now is go into edit mode, sorry. Control R, add a cut down here, scale that on the z-axis, like so, and then scale it on the y-axis. There. Let's reduce that down, take this next one up, and scale that one on the x-axis as well. Let's do this from the top view. Yep. There you go. That is now sitting a lot better. The fit on that one is, yep, a lot better. A lot of this will be trial and error, especially when it comes to fitting parts that would have been hand fitted when they were actually made. Just take a little bit of perseverance. I will say, however, that that is not correct. There, that's not how that sword looks at all. So I'm going to go into edit mode and take these faces here and scale them in as well. Actually, what I might do is just get rid of those altogether, because they will not actually be seen in the final model. I'll just take this edge here, move it in like that. Let's see if that's visible now. Nope. There we go. Got a much better fit now. Not so much clipping through faces. There is a little bit of clipping here and there where the models are overlapping. But other than that, not too bad. Always good to have a look in rendered mode with the wireframe off, just to see how they're fitting. Just make sure there isn't any glaring issues. Again, down here there is something else, so I'm going to go back down this end here, fix that. That's because the pommel is now a little bit too thin, so I'm going to scale that on the x-axis there. Look. Gonna take this one. Take this inner face, extrude, scale, bring that in. Just make sure there's no open faces visible. There we go. Looks like a much better fit now. Right, now that we've done all that, it's time to start unwrapping. So I'm going to start with this end piece. I'm going to go into the UV editing tab here. I'm going to select all faces. Now this one has actually unwrapped quite well already. Let's have a look. Although this end piece is quite large, which is this entire head cap here. However, I think that one actually is done quite well. Just going to make sure there's no overlappings. No overlapping UVs. No, that one's done quite well. So we're going to move on to the next one. Again, this one's pretty good when it comes to being unwrapped. Because we started off from a default sphere, it hasn't had to do much. I'm going to just have a look what happens if I smart unwrap that one. It's going to break it up into pieces, and that's going to cause a bit more issue. In this case, it has just unwrapped it around. Yep. So unwrapped it quite nicely actually. So move on to the next one. The next one, I believe, won't be as, yeah. So this one, because of how it's been unwrapped, how it's been modelled, it's got clipping and it's got overlapping UVs, so we're going to have to fix those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate that part there, I'm going to put a seam line underneath, just here. You can add a seam line by going to Edit, just selecting that edge here, right click, mark seam. Now when it unwraps it, it knows that that is a point where everything's going to unfold from. So select everything and let's have a look, see what that does. That's a bit better. It's been a little bit wonky, but it's not too bad for the shape, and it has removed all the overlapping UVs. Okay, I'm going to move that to the center. I'm just going to rotate it a little so everything is on the same UV plane. So now that we've unwrapped via the seam, we're going to want to square off this UV. As we can see, it's kind of bent around the top and the bottom. It's kind of warped slightly to the side. So I'm going to square this UV by going to one of the central ones as they're more square. I'm going to select the top here. I'm going to scale by Y. 0. I'm just going to make sure this is completely squared off. Scale by X, 0. Scale by X, 0. As you can see there, it jumped a little bit because it wasn't completely flat. So I'm going to select that polygon, select L to select it all, and then I'm going to do a follow active quads and click OK, and that's scaled it up. Sorry, it's scaled it square. So now I'm going to just scale that onto the UV template here. Move it around, just scale up a little bit so it fits just a little bit better. I'm also going to move it over to the side just in case something else can go there. Okay, so that's that piece done. Now the more difficult piece. So let's have a look at this one. So we've got both overlapping UVs down the bottom for this head cap. So what is the best way to cut this? So let's first take a seam down the underside of the center, like that. I'm going to mark that seam, then I'm going to deselect these ones because I don't want these ones to be a seam. So I'm going to get rid of these ones here. Like that. Right click, clear seam. Well, these ones should be decent. Oh, it's because these are the ones I had selected. There we go. But I select the ones that I want to remove. Right click, clear seam. There we go. So now I have that seam cutting this way, leaving the top. And then I'm going to mark a seam this side. So right click, mark seam. That should be okay down that end. Okay. Let's have a look, see what it does. I imagine it's going to unwrap it around and then it's going to remove the top. Oh. It's because it's marked both sides. I don't want that. That's my error. So I'm going to select this top one. I'm going to get rid of that one. So deselect everything first. And we got the ones in here to get rid of. Them from the seam selection. Right click, clear seam. So it just should be on one side now. Oops. Missed that one there. Clear seam. Control A. There we go. So that's made it a lot better in terms of unwrap, as it won't cause it to have two large seams. Is there any of these we can square off? Although that might cause some stretching. Let's have a look. Let's try with this one. Everything is trial and error when it comes to very strange shapes. Y by 0, select Y by 0, oops, select Y, scale by Y, 0, and then these two, scale by X, 0, select these two here, scale by X, 0. Select that quad there, then L. That has done it. We'll have to see how that affects it. I imagine it is going to cause some stretching of the texture, so we might have to rethink that at a later time. At the top here seems that that one's done okay. Oops. Needs to be moved up, rotate it a bit. There we go. That one seems alright now. And finally we've got to work on the blade, which in theory should be the easiest, as it should just be a case of selecting that middle line. Please select everything. I can work out which is the middle line. Oh, might as well get rid of. Actually, it was not that one, it was this one. Right click, marker seam, A, yep, because this was modelled from a box that was then mirrored and then cut apart again and then mirrored again and welded. That's the UV we've got. So UV, unwrap, and it's gone for the two pieces here. However, it has decided to layer a couple of the UVs for some reason. So let's try UV Smart Unwrap, see what that thinks. There we go, that's better. Much cleaner. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to select this one here, rotate by 180, so they're both facing the same way. They are actually leaving the area slightly, so I'm just going to scale those down. There we go. So that is our Roman gladius with all of its details added. It's been smoothed and it's been unwrapped. Thank you for watching so far. See you in the next video.